Okay, this is an honest review of Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. I'm going to start with the pros and then go to the cons and then give it two different ratings. So the pros of the book was it was very easy to read. It was very gripping. The storytelling was wonderful. I found myself getting lost in the book and looking forward to it throughout the day. Looking forward to that end of the day reading time and just wondering what was going to happen and um, thinking even in real life situations of like how would I act in that certain situation, or if I was at the grocery store or something and saw someone thinking that wow, maybe that's the angel of my life. The book's main character was Angel. Um, it did give a good message of not worshiping your spouse or worshiping a person. The book had um, a theme of one way or the other, a man worshiping his wife, and then the wife worshiping the man, and then God uh, taking breaking that apart and showing that He is a jealous God and that He will have no part of a man worshiping a woman worshiping a man, in a marriage, in a friendship, in a boss relationship. It did paint a good picture of God being the one and the only one worthy of worship. And then it had a good message of, in order to have something truly, you have to let it go. Um, the book, and these spoiler alerts if you haven't read it, um, showed that the main character woman, Angel, Amanda, Sarah, there's their different names. She kept leaving, and then the main character, male, Michael, who had married her in an odd ceremony where she wasn't really coherent to be married in the first place, um, kept chasing after her and kept chasing after her. Twice she left after he brought her back out of a terrible situation into a good situation. She left out of that good situation twice, and on the third time she left, he finally let her go, and only then did she truly realize she needed to be with him after 3 years. Um, the ending was fantastic. Loved the ending. Um, Loved pretty much everything about the ending. But there were some issues with the book. It seemed to have a big revenge narrative. So there's three different, I guess, really four different revenge narratives that were main cogs in the book. One was with the main character female's father, who did not want her ever as a child, and was very emotionally neglectful and didn't want to be a part of her life. So his pretty much story, his whole story came back around when the main character was in her trade, was in her field of prostitution, and she encountered him, and they had intercourse, and she knew it, and she let it happen. And then it went on to say that his story ended with he shot himself in the book. He took his own life. Um, and that was the end of it. And that's just one of the three revenge narratives. There was another one, and it just kind of painted this picture of that when people do really, really bad things, then bad things happen to them. But at the same time, um, the whole point of the book was it was a redemption, but it was almost like a redemption if there was only certain circumstances or certain situations. Like Angel got redeemed after a while, but then these other three men, her dad, a character named Duke, and then a character named McGowan, who did terrible things, did not get redeemed at all. Had ended with all ended with death. Um, well, except in Duke's case, you didn't really say what happened to him. But so the book of redemption was just kind of like qualified or conditional if it was the sin was okay. Wherein in Angel's case, she had trauma and had terrible things happen to her. But you could say the same thing for these three people. There was a reason that they were what they were, at some point in childhood they were victims too, so their life panned out a different way, and they chose to go down a path that was not good and ended in violence and fornication and abuse and child abuse. But they weren't redeemed at all. It just seemed to paint a picture of a very negative light on certain sinful actions, but then other certain sinful actions you could be redeemed from. So I really didn't like that narrative at all. I thought it was kind of picking and choosing what God's grace could be, and it was really a vengeful, vindictive, minor plot. That wasn't the major plot of the book, but there was minor plots, and that really didn't sit well with me at all. And then, so the book is based on the prophet Hosea, which God commanded him to marry a harlot. In the book of Hosea, you can read it if you want, was that book started off with the marriage, started off with children, started off with Gomer and Hosea having children, and the names of the children being symbols of God's love to Israel, or how his chosen people Israel were acting. And then the rest of the book goes on to talk about God's frustration with Israel, their rebellion with his chosen people, and then ultimately God's love. So the book of Hosea was minorly featured the relationship between Gomer and Hosea, and the overarching grandiose scale was about God's redeeming love. And then in this book it was flipped. So in the book of Hosea in the Bible, it's probably 90% of God and who He is, and His people's rebellion and God's redeeming love, and then 10% of a relationship. And it's completely flipped in this book. It's 90% of their relationship, 10% of God's redeeming love, which it does point out that God's love is what brought them together, but it was still such a minor theme. It was like their relationship was way up here, and then God was way down here, just kind of orchestrating it for their good. Where in reality, like, the relationship is orchestrated for God's good, for His glory, for His kingdom, and it was just completely flipped. So didn't really love that. And then lastly, it really focused on like the physical attributes of the main characters, which didn't really seem realistic, or it wasn't really, I guess, wasn't relatable, or just made me think if this was just such a fantasy. It was just not. I mean, she talked a lot about Angel's beauty, and physical descriptions of her, and then it talked about the main characters, Michael and Paul's, just their strong stature and their details about their physical appearance and their physical attractiveness, and it was just like, I don't know, it just wasn't real. It seemed to be focused too much on that. So overall, the readability and just the enjoyment I got from the book was 4 stars out of 5. 4 out of 5. And then the message of God's love, and who He is and how He works through people, I would give that a 2 out of 5. I didn't really like that. But it's a good read. Give it a read if you'd like to, and let me know in the comments what you thought. Thanks.